Welcome back to Satisfactory version 1. We continue with our let's play. In the last episode, we did everything that had to do with nitrogen gas. We started playing with it, making things like cooling systems, heat sinks, and even more. Don't hesitate to check that in the video description below if you want to see it. And today we move forward with the rest of tier 8. The goal is really to unlock the last tier 8 milestone, which is particle enrichment, and to start using it. To do this, we need to make some turbo motor. We're also going to be able to start playing with Manor Mark III, so we can get to a huge production, but again, this requires some turbo motor. Before we talk about turbo motor though, I want to make a new drone base, which will enable us to make the turbo motor, but also other things in the future. To do this, instead of using the batteries, we're going to use the turbo fuel. We had created in the past, right, this turbo fuel factory. This was actually using blueprints. I have a full episode on this, and we were burning this turbo fuel, right? But we're now making so much energy with nuclear that we don't really need to burn this fuel to make electricity. So instead, we can use it. And this is this pipe you can see over here. Just one of the two lines. I'm taking this turbo fuel, and we're going to bring it over here. Bring it over here, which was already existing, right? With this turbo fuel, we're making polymer resin, and we're transforming this polymer resin into plastic and rubber. That's what's happening over here. I'm going to use the plastic to do packages, right? This is what you can see over here. We turn 30 of plastic into 60 empty canisters, right? That goes here into the storage, and then we're going to use, these packages into the packages, all right, with the turbo fuel that come from here to package the turbo fuel, because you cannot just put fluid into the drone ports. You have to put package turbo fuel or package fuel or batteries. But again, as you can see, the idea is I had tons of turbo fuel. It doesn't cost that much for a trip. A trip over here, for example, is going to cost me 10 of turbo fuel. And that way we can send drones everywhere on the map and bring things here, right? This is going to be a bit of a central storage for a couple of advanced production. So for example, I have this first one over here is going to get some cooling systems. This second one over here is going to get some radio control units. And this third one here is getting some motors. I know motors is not so complex. I could potentially make it, over here, but it's fine. And then last is not doing anything actually. So this is just to show you I can add more, and create a mini storage, mini bus over here if you wish. But yeah, we have those resources coming, and they go into this manufacturer there to start making some turbo motor. Right now I only have one manufacturer. I could easily put more. You could also potentially use some summer sloop or even some power shards if you want, but we're already making basically 2 per minute right now. And the reality is there's not many things that you can do with those turbo motors. We do need 50 for unlocking the last milestone. We will need the turbo motor for the thermal propulsion, as they call it, thermal propulsion rocket. But we only need 250 of that, right? And then, yeah, I know for phase 5, we'll need also some, but that's basically the only use. It is not used for anything else in terms of production. It is used to build things, like, for example, building the Manor Mark III and a couple of other things in the future. But again, you don't need like a huge production of it, in my opinion. So that's what we started over here. And yeah, we haven't made 50 yet. But yeah, as soon as we have 50, I'm going to take them and unlock particle enrichment. While we're waiting for this, we can though take a few to make our first miners. And in particular, we may want to start preparing a nuclear waste treatment, because we're going to want to trade all of the nuclear waste. Right now, we're just storing it, and at some point, it's going to be way too much. So instead, we can start doing things with it. So after unlocking leading edge production in the last episode with turbo motor and Manor Mark III, we have now the last tier 8 particle enrichment. It's going to unlock many new things. Obviously, I'm going to show you. It does take 50 of those turbo motors. So good that we fully automated that, sorry. 100 of fuse modular frames, 200 of cooling system, everything we did in the last episode, and then 2,500 of the quick wire. Let's launch the pod and see what Ada is going to tell us today.
Milestone reached. Project part number 9, nuclear pasta, can be created in the particle accelerator. The accelerator has vast and fluctuating power demands, depending on the recipe, so will need careful integration with your factory. Fix-It does not waste, so nuclear waste can be refined by the particle accelerator into plutonium for reuse in the nuclear power plant. Fun fact, Fix-It psychologists suggest factory designs reflect the minds of their creators in unexpected ways. On an unrelated note, your infrastructural choices have been interesting.
So she's basically saying my brain is interesting. But yeah, we've unlocked the particle accelerator. It will take 10 turbo motor and many of the other advanced resources. It will also have, as she said, a fluctuating energy. Even if you're at 100%, in terms of the inputs, your energy is going to fluctuate. Basically, it's a cycle where it starts very low at 250 and it increasing to 1.5 thousand megawatts. So yeah, you definitely do need to have a bit more of electricity there, and we may see some fluctuations. We have also now the way to transform nuclear waste. So if we go over here into our uranium waste, before we couldn't do anything with it. Now we actually have two different recipes, and there's a third one that we can unlock. This is taking, again, the uranium waste to transform it into non-fissile uranium and also into plutonium pellet. And by the way, the plutonium pellet, they require the non-fissile uranium. So, you sort of need both of these for it, even if there is also some alternate recipes here. So yeah, let's go to our nuclear factory so we can start playing with that. And here it is, ladies and gents, we have the nuclear plants here in the background, right? And we have started to expand. You can see some of the waste is actually going down, and we have this whole new place. Now, this is not finished at all, but I still wanted to, take a small pause here in my construction path and start showing you what we've done, start talking about some of the recipes, which of the recipes are the best, and then I'll continue expanding this part, especially over here a bit more, and I'll show you when we're done. So I talk about the actual factory over there and recipes and whatnot. I've made two changes to the existing factory. The first one is all the way over here inside this concrete block. The second is at the bottom here. This is about two miners that used to be miners Mark II and that are now miner Mark III. So let's drop over there so I can show you miner Mark III. Here it is. So it is bigger. You can see, especially here in the front, for many years, many people were thinking maybe this is going to be transformed into a second output, but no, this is still one output, but the production has doubled, right? Like each miner doubles the production. So we're talking about 250 per minute for a normal extraction, for a normal node at 100%. It does cost some pretty advanced resources, right? As you can see, 3 miners, but most importantly, supercomputers, fused modular frames, and turbo motor. And yeah, basically now with this, for the sulfur, we move from 300 to 600. And for the uranium, we move from 150 to 300. So I also upgraded, the belts, the elevators, etc., so that we're bringing more of those resources. So for example, over here, you can see this is Mark V. This is still going through the same place, but what's going to happen is that those resources, we're going to make them continue. So for example, this one continues over here, right? And for the uranium, it used to go, and stop here. Give me a second. It used to stop over there, right? And now it continues and goes down. And so both of those resources, right, uranium and sulfur, that is just below it, they continue and they will go into this new mega place here. We're going to do quite a few things. There is a lot of radioactivity as always, especially on this side, a bit less on this side, and then we restart being radioactive on that side. What are we doing? Well, we're doing some sulfuric acid, taking the sulfur we just mentioned and a bit of water, making the sulfuric acid. So that's what's happening over here. We have, I think it's 9 of them, just because of how much sulfur was left. We have 600. I was using 150, so we have 450 left. Divided by 50, that means 9, right? So this is all of the sulfur that was left, we transform into sulfuric acid. Then the sulfuric acid, we do two things. One, it goes into first this sulfuric acid buffer, and then we're going to use it on this side. And two, I thought, let's also use it to maybe make a bit of package if we need them at some point somewhere. Like, if I need some sulfuric acid anywhere else on the map, basically. So I'm bringing some empty canisters over here. We're actually using them in 2 places, you'll see. There is this one here, and then it also goes down in this elevator. But yeah, we package, the sulfuric acid with empty canisters, and then, we store it for now. We're not really doing anything with it. So that's the first one, sulfuric acid. Then we have another fluid that you see, the sulfuric acid goes over here, but there's another fluid on this side. So let's check it out. This is this fluid here. This is blenders, not refineries, that are going to make nitrogen gas plus water plus iron plates into nitric acid. So this is, I think, the first time we're making it, nitric acid. It's not used in tons of different things, but we needed it here. So we have, how many? We have 5, if I'm not mistaken. So 5 times, 150 of nitrogen. This is actually 600 of nitrogen. So the max of one belt, then a bit of water and iron plate. The iron plate, they're actually also coming from on top. they're coming from all the way over here. This is the iron we were already using to make all of the nuclear things before. I just added a couple of iron constructors. It's really not that many because we only need, what is it, 10 each? Yeah. So I added 3 constructors, and then we have this bell that comes all the way here. The water is here at level 2, and at level 0 we have nitrogen gas. Nitrogen gas is coming from really next door. This is the main reason why I made this whole thing here, to be honest, because we had the gas here, and it's not like there is gas everywhere. We are actually using most of them except one, but we are actually only using one of this pipeline, right? Because remember again, we're using 600, so this is one pipeline. We have 300 on this extractor and 300 on this one, so that's 600. Then I'm also making 600 on this one, 600 on that one, but we're not using them at all basically right now. So I do have quite a bit of nitrogen for the future if needed. And yeah, with those two things, as I said, they go over here. This is the water, by the way. They go over here and they will go into those blenders. And this is where we start talking about some of the different recipes. So which recipe should we use for our uranium waste? Now, the uranium waste is actually using 3 different recipes. 2 are normal ones and 1 is alternate. But in this case right now, we're going to focus mostly on the first and the third, because this is using waste to make non-fissile uranium. The second one is, once you already have this non-fissile uranium, how do you make plutonium pellets, right? Pellets. So we basically need to compare the first 2. In both of them, we're using uranium waste. In both of them, we're using nitric acid, and both of them we're using sulfuric acid. So that's why I've showed you those 2 new production here. The difference is both the numbers and then the last resource. The last resource in the normal recipe is the silica, so you need quartz, right? Versus in the final one, this is uranium. So we already have uranium on site, and I think you've already understood which one I've chosen, but let me show you why I've chosen this one. So you may think the last recipe is not great because you're using uranium and you'd rather use uranium to make actual, uranium rods and make more nuclear. But no, this recipe is better, and it's better in my opinion for everything. In terms of the nitric acid, it's exactly the same. In terms of the sulfuric acid, you are almost doubling, right? So you may think the third recipe is not as great because instead of 15, you need 25 of acid, but you're doubling the output, right? Instead of making 50 on non-fissile uranium, you're making 100. So this is actually better in terms of sulfuric acid. And then last but not least, in terms of uranium. So in this one, you're using 37.5 of uranium to make 50 non-fissile uranium. In this one, you're going to use 25 raw uranium and 25 waste to make 100 of non-fissile uranium. So to be able to compare, we also need to understand from the 25 of uranium, how much waste are you actually creating? Are you creating less or more waste? So I actually calculated this basically to make 1 uranium waste, you're going to use 0.833 of uranium. So you can sort of calculate the equivalent here. You can say that 25 uranium and 25 uranium waste are the equivalent of 46 uranium. This is 46 uranium, but to make 100 of non-fissile uranium, right? So basically, if you divide it by half to get to 50 and compare exactly apples to apples, it is only 23, and 23 is better than 37.5. Right? So in terms of the quantity of uranium to make the non-fissile uranium, this is better too. The only thing that is not better is obviously this uranium here won't be used to make electricity. Right? You're sort of losing a bit on that electricity piece. But you do need to remember that to make all of that electricity out of uranium, you also need tons of other production. So this was not my goal here to make more electricity. My goal was to take care of my waste, right, in the most efficient way possible. So to take care of my waste, and we're already making 180 of waste, right, so already quite a lot, this last recipe is definitely better. I would love to hear in the comments below if you disagree, but for me, it's a no-brainer. Then once you have non-fissile uranium, you can either add some uranium waste to it to make pellets, or you can add aluminum casing to make plutonium cell. And you may be wondering what's the link between pellet and plutonium cell. Is basically pellet is stage 2, plutonium cell is stage 3. So what you're going to do if you do make the pellet is you're going to have to add some concrete to it, and then you will make the in-case plutonium cell. So this alternate recipe here of the instant plutonium cell basically bypasses the pellet stage. Now, bypassing it is already great in the sense that probably that means less electricity, etc. But let's compare the actual numbers. Right? In this case here, you're going to use 100 to make 30 pellets. And 30 pellets, if you look at the second recipe over here, will make basically 15, right? 1/5 of in-case plutonium cell. So we're taking 100 to make 15. Here, you're taking 75 to make 10. So if you divide the first by 15 and the second by 10 to get them, apple to apple, basically how much does it cost in terms of non-feasible uranium to make one plutonium cell? With the first recipe, it will take you 6.6 plus 1.6 of waste, versus the second one will only take 5. So the second one is way better, right? Because one, it uses less feasible, non-feasible uranium. Second, it doesn't require you to use even more waste. So that means I can make way more plutonium cell at the end. And third, as I said before, it bypasses the pellet, so it makes it also easier. So we're already going to use two alternate recipes, right? First, this fertile uranium. Second, this instant plutonium cell. But we're not done yet. Now we have the final stage, which is how to make plutonium fuel rod. Once more, we have an alternate recipe that is interesting. It's interesting because it's going to change from manufacturer to assembler. It's also going to increase the output. Instead of 0.25, it's 0.5. So you're going to need less if you wish. So in terms of the complexity of this step, it's a no-brainer. But is it actually better, especially for the waste, right? The sort of waste to energy ratio. Well, here you're going to use 7.5 to make 0.25. Here it is 10 to make 0.5. So any math can show you that the second one is better, right? Basically, if you bring it to 1, you need 30 of in-case plutonium cell here to make 1, versus here you only need 20, sorry. I need 20, so 20 is better than 30, right? The less you use, the better. So that one is better for sure in terms of the plutonium consumption. But you do have to make pressure conversion cubes. And pressure conversion cubes, they take fused modular frames and a radio control unit. Now, to be honest, I didn't do the full calculation of, okay, how much does it take, in terms of iron, copper, aluminum, all those base resources to make all of this versus making the electromagnetic control rod, the heat sink, and the steel beams. I'm pretty sure maybe it is more for the pressure conversion cubes, even if you only need 0.5 versus you need, 2.5 sinks and 1.5 electromagnetic control rod. But for me, it's still better. So again, it may be that you're consuming a bit more iron, etc., to do this recipe there. But in terms of the plutonium consumption, so if you wish, I'm making 180 of uranium waste right now, and I want to get as much as possible of plutonium fuel rod out of this, then this alternate recipe is the best. So yeah, basically at each step, we're going to use the alternate recipe, and it will require a lot of pressure conversion cubes, which is something we've never done before. We're going to start doing them. Now, in terms of the numbers, there is another thing I do have to talk about, which is, as I've been mentioning, we are making 180 of uranium waste if we use all of the uranium rods that we've been making before. This will be asking for quite a lot of other resources, right? Basically, I'm going to need 180 of uranium, a bit more than 100 of nitric acid, 180 of sulfuric acid. I'm going to need a bit of water, not that much to be honest, 100 aluminum casing, and we're going to need 4.8 of the pressure conversion cubes, which means we need 4.8 of the fused modular frame, and we need 9.6 of the radio control units. Now, I'm not going to lie, we are not making this amount today, right? We're going to need to increase our production on those things. But there is another small problem with this, which is the uranium. We moved to Mark III miners on that one uranium node, and that moved us from 150 to 300. So we gained 150 on top of it. So that is not going to be enough, right? If we want to really have all of this waste, we're going to need a bit more of uranium. So you have two ways. You could indeed bring a bit more of uranium to the place. So we're going to need to bring it from far, maybe using a drone, for example. Or what we could do is start having less of the nuclear power station for uranium that should be online. So basically, instead of having 9 of those power stations online, that is using all of the uranium rod we're making, maybe what you do is that you have less. You have, for example, 8 or you have 7. So you'll create, two things are going to happen. First, you're going to create a bit less waste, and you're also going to use a bit less uranium. So that way you will have enough uranium to take care of the waste. And it's also not a problem in terms of electricity, because let's assume, for example, even if we go to 7 instead of 9, okay, we're going to lose, what was it, 5,000, we're going to use maybe, 10,000 of electricity, maybe 15,000 max with the bonuses. But then with all of this, we're going to start making so much plutonium fuel rod that we're going to make way more energy with all of this. So yes, I haven't decided yet if I'm going to bring a bit more uranium. We'll probably do this just to make sure we can keep everything flat and running at 100%. But I did want to mention this to you if you're trying to follow along. So again, to recap, we're bringing more uranium, we're bringing sulfur to make sulfuric acid, we have the nitrogen to make the nitric, and we're going to bring, of course, our waste. This is the big, very important thing, our waste over here. I don't know, to be honest, how much waste we have right now. I'm sure we have quite a lot. Ooh, I'm using a lot of iodine filters too. I feel like I'm going to have to rebuild some soon. But yeah, I don't know how much waste we have, but we probably have a ton. And this one is empty at least. This one is not empty. So yeah, you can see this is all full of uranium waste. So it's time for us to start really transforming it. And this is what we're going to do here in those 8 blenders. So those 8 blenders are definitely enough for 180. They're actually even enough for 200. They're enough for 200 of uranium waste. Taking all of this, as we said, making the non-fissile uranium and a bit of water. Now, what are we going to do with this water? Well, this water actually comes over here, and then I send it into those packages, package it into water, and then we just dump it into an awesome sink. You cannot dump liquid, so that's why we have to package it. And again, this is the main reason why I brought some empty canisters here with the drone. And it's the same empty canisters I showed you earlier in the episode, right, with our turbo fuel. It's the same place. We have some canisters, they arrive here, and they do go here, and then they go down to that place there. And then with this, we're making the non-fissile uranium, right? It goes over here and on this side, and we're making quite a lot, right? Remember, this is 100 for each. So that is why we have also 2 belts. 1 belt is not enough. So we have 2 belts, and then they go all the way across into this new place here where we have our first particle accelerator. One was online for the second. They are not actually working right now 100% because I am not bringing the aluminum casing automatically. I still need to do this, but we can, drop a couple like this manually together so that we turn them on, and we can see these beautiful animations. Again, they're gonna turn on. Give it a second. So it is. I'm gonna take a step back. Oh, and actually I realized, again, this is not finished. Just wanted to take a step back and show you a bit where we are at. But yeah, we're gonna want to put this one here and this one there. So it is. They're turning on. You have this cool static electricity or whatever it is. You can see the energy is also increasing slowly but surely. That's an interesting component with this one. And we're making the encased plutonium cell. Right? This encased plutonium cell, they're gonna go on the outside here. So again, let's connect. Oh, this is not straight, but whatever. So they're coming on the outside, right? Merge all together. It is taking, as I said, at the bottom the non-fissile, and at the top it's taking the the aluminum casing. So I can definitely, also put it like this, and then you'll see it come out, and then go split on each of them. We have the drone port is there. I just need to actually make that production and send it over here because we don't really have any bauxite anywhere close here. I think the closest bauxite is somewhere over here. Yeah, this is the closest bauxite. So we're gonna need to build something new for this and just bring it there. But yeah, when it's done, it merges on this whole line there, and it goes over here. I think this is probably empty right now because we haven't been making a lot. Yeah, but it goes here, and then it goes into 10 of these assemblers where we're taking the encased plutonium cell and the pressure conversion cubes to make those plutonium fuel rods. The pressure cubes, they are here at this 3rd level, right? And they come from another drone port. I'll show you later where that's being made. And then, yeah, obviously, we're going to merge all of these plutonium fuel rods then on this line. And then you can do 2 things. If your goal here is to make sure you don't have any radioactive waste, then just send them into the awesome sink. This is only rods can be sent into the awesome sink. You cannot send these non-fissile. You cannot send even those ones here, the plutonium in case plutonium cell. So you decide either it goes there or it could go and continue making you more electricity, right? It would go basically into another nuclear plant where instead of taking the uranium fuel rod, you're going to take the plutonium fuel rod. It consumes actually less. Instead of 0.2, it consumes 0.1. And remember, we're going to make at the minimum 4, at the maximum 4.8. So that's quite a lot of electricity, right? Times 5,000. It will make some plutonium waste, so you have to keep that in mind. And you're gonna have to do something with the waste. The good thing is there is something we can do with the waste in version 1. In the early access, you were stuck with your plutonium waste. Now we can do something with it. That will be tier 9 though, right? So we're gonna need to keep that in mind. And yeah, with this, we can again increase our electricity consumption. I'm going to pause it right now because, again, I can't really do anything with the waste right now. So what I want to do is probably create a lot of storage of this plutonium fuel rod and then start sending them into some sink, right? I do need to also build way more of these. As I said, this is only 0.2, even at 200%, and we're making, 4 something. So I'm going to need like, 20 of these, which means that then I'm going to need 40 of these because each of these nuclear plants takes 480 at 200%. So you need 2 of them that are already overclocked before you can get to enough. So yeah, I'm gonna have to have a lot of water here. We're gonna have a lot of nuclear plants there. They're probably gonna be all paused at the beginning, but that's fine. And with this, we'll be treating all the waste there. So if you're following, basically the only thing missing for this whole thing to work perfectly is aluminum casing. Bring aluminum casing, the whole thing will work. No, sorry, I'm lying. The other thing is we're going to need enough pressure conversion cubes, which I have some. You may have seen over here. For example, this one at 50 is full. This one has 50 is full. This one has not 50 is not full. So we're going to need also quite a lot of pressure conversion cubes, which we've started making, but in full transparency, we're not making enough. So yeah, there's that too. But we are definitely, starting to use Manor Mark III. We've started to do nuclear waste treatment. So let me show you where I'm making those pressure cubes, and then I'll start working on the rest of this. We're back in the drone port, and we have some new ones. First of all, as I mentioned before, we have a new one here for empty canisters. So you can see some empty canisters that we're sending. And then we have also 2 new ones here. The first one is bringing some fuse modular frames. We started making fuse modular frames and they come here. The second is actually the cubes. When they're done, they go into this port and then they go to the nuclear factory, right? So actually just making sure you know where we're at. We are here over there, right? And the nuclear factory is over here. So this is actually this drone that comes from here. I mean, there's 2 drones. There's one with the canisters and one that comes with those pressure cubes. They go both here and there. Here and there, and the only one missing is the aluminum casing. But yeah, we have 5 of these because each of one is making 1. So with 5 we're going to make 5, which is a bit more than what we need if the whole nuclear factory is working 100%. So yeah, taking fuse modular frames and a radio control unit. Now to be honest, fuse modular frames, we are not exactly making 5, but it's not that far because you may remember we have 2 manufacturers that are making this production. So let me just show you. Where is it? Oh no, it's a blender. It is a blender. It is a blender. So, because there's nitrogen. Yeah, I forgot about that. So this was this one here. Yes. So one of them is making 1.5. Right? We have 2 of them. So we're already making 3. And we can just add a couple of Somer's loop, and then we will double this, right, from 3 to 6. So then with 6, we'll be totally fine, right? Because right now, we're only needing 5 for this whole thing to work perfectly. So fuse modular frame is not going to be too hard. What is going to be harder is the radio control units, right? Radio control units, we don't need 2 or 5, we need 2 times 5, so 10, right? And I always forget where they are. I think it's actually an assembler. Let me just check. No, it is a manufacturer. They take aluminum casing, crystal oscillators, and computers. I mean, there's other recipes, but this is the recipe we've been using in the past. And it is only making 2.5. We need 10. So again, and I think we did have 2 of them. So we could be making 5, and then we could be making 10 with some Somer's loop. But to be able to do that, we would need to have quite a big production also of computers. And I know that today our computer factory is not working, is not producing enough either. Plus, we're going to need many of those things also for tier 5 elements. I mean, you know, I need obviously pressure cubes for the last one. We're going to need also some of these for the thermal rocket, etc. So what I've decided is that for the next episode, instead of actually trying to complete phase 4 right away, we're going to take a small break in moving through, you know, the milestone and challenges to take advantage of the fact that now we have the Manor Mark III. This is the biggest miner you can have in the game. So we're going to use this Manor Mark III on a new place. We're going to make a new factory that is going to be sort of an endgame gigantic factory to build tons of those radio control units. Right, because we need more, but not just that. I'm going to also make, I think, tons of crystal oscillators there and a few other things. So where are we going to make this? Well, of course, let's go where we haven't been yet, right? We haven't really been into this part of the map. So I think this is a perfect time to go there. You know, yeah, there's going to be, of course, some bauxite that's going to be important, but also some other resources. There's going to be some oil too, by the way, because we're going to need oil. I mean, if you're talking about computers, things like this, you're going to need oil. So yeah, we're going to make a new gigantic factory here, which will then enable us to have a nuclear factory working at 100%, but it will also enable us to be ready not only to finish phase 4, but really to move into phase 5 and tier 9. So I'm excited with this. It will take me a bit of time, so please smash the like button. Don't hesitate to tell me in the comments below any question or thought that you have, and I hope to see you next time.